The cafe hummed with the usual sounds of clinking cups and soft murmurs of conversation. A warm, comforting aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the air as patrons enjoyed their brief escapes from the bustling outside world. Suddenly, the peace shattered. A loud, piercing yell cut through the ambience, silencing every voice and freezing every movement. Heads turned toward the source, a visibly agitated stranger, red-faced and furious, his voice trembling with anger. Amidst the chaos stood Barron Trump, seated calmly at a corner table. His tall frame and composed demeanor caught the attention of onlookers. While others shifted uncomfortably in their seats, unsure how to react, Barron appeared unshaken. He set down his phone and looked directly at the man, his gaze steady but unthreatening. The room was thick with tension. People whispered nervously, unsure of what had provoked the outburst or how Barron would respond. The stranger's voice echoed again, louder this time, as the crowd held its collective breath. And then it happened. Barron's reaction left everyone speechless. Could a single gesture from a teenager transform the mood in a room brimming with unease? What he did next would stay etched in the minds of everyone present. Barron Trump, the youngest child of a former U.S. president, has often been a figure of quiet intrigue. Unlike the spotlight that regularly envelopes his family, Barron is known for maintaining a low profile, rarely making public appearances or seeking attention. Standing taller than most, with an air of maturity beyond his years, he exudes a calm and introspective demeanor that contrasts with the chaos often associated with public life. On this particular day, Barron found himself in a cozy cafe tucked away in a bustling city. The space was warm and inviting, with soft lighting bouncing off rustic wooden tables. The air was filled with the aroma of coffee and pastries, blending seamlessly with the sound of quiet chatter, occasional laughter, and the gentle hum of espresso machines. People came here to relax, a haven from the day's demands. But then, the atmosphere shifted. The sudden, jarring yell from the stranger tore through the calm, silencing the room instantly. Cups paused mid-air, conversations halted, and all eyes turned toward the commotion. The cafe, once a retreat of serenity, was now charged with confusion and unease. In the center of it all sat Barron, unmoving and composed, as though the chaos swirling around him was merely a passing breeze. The source of the disruption was a middle-aged man, visibly distressed and agitated. His disheveled appearance, a wrinkled shirt, unkempt hair, and weary eyes suggested he had been carrying the weight of a bad day or perhaps something much deeper. His face was flushed, and his hands trembled slightly as he pointed accusingly at Barron Trump, who remained seated at his table. "People like you think you're better than the rest of us," the man yelled, his voice shaking with anger. His words seemed to spill out without thought, a chaotic mixture of frustration and bitterness. It was unclear what had triggered him. Perhaps he had recognized Barron and projected his own grievances onto him, or maybe it was simply a case of misplaced rage. Regardless of the reason, his hostility filled the room like an oppressive cloud. The cafe fell eerily silent as customers froze, unsure of what to do. Some exchanged nervous glances, while others tried to avoid eye contact altogether. The barista behind the counter hesitated mid-motion, caught off guard by the sudden turn of events. All attention was now focused on the confrontation, with an unspoken question lingering in the air. How would Barron respond to such an unwarranted attack? As the stranger's voice echoed through the cafe, all eyes were on Barron Trump. In a situation where most people would have reacted defensively or with anger, Barron's demeanor was strikingly different. He remained seated, his posture upright but relaxed, radiating a calm presence that seemed almost out of place amidst the chaos. He didn't flinch or show any sign of discomfort. Instead, he quietly looked at the man, his expression soft and composed. Barron didn't interrupt, argue, or show frustration. He simply listened, letting the man's anger run its course. His face showed no trace of arrogance or defiance, only a quiet curiosity and, perhaps, an attempt to understand the stranger's pain. His steady gaze wasn't confrontational. It carried a quiet empathy that was hard to ignore. His body language was open and non-threatening, hands resting on the table, shoulders relaxed, his breathing calm. The absence of any defensive or hostile reaction seemed to confuse the stranger, whose voice began to falter. Barron's composed reaction had an unexpected effect on the room. The tension started to dissipate as people began to notice his maturity and poise. Without saying a word, Barron had already started to shift the energy in the cafe. As the stranger's tirade began to lose its intensity, Barron finally broke his silence. His voice was calm, steady, and free of any hostility. "Are you okay, sir?" he asked softly, his tone carrying genuine concern. His words hung in the air, cutting through the tension like a soothing balm. There was no anger, no attempt to defend himself, just a simple question that caught everyone off guard, especially the man who had been shouting. The stranger paused, clearly taken aback by Barron's unexpected response. His expression shifted from anger to confusion, as if he hadn't anticipated kindness in return for his outburst. Barron leaned forward slightly, his hands still resting on the table, and added, "Can I get you something? Maybe a coffee or something to eat?" His offer wasn't just polite, it was sincere. Around the cafe, a ripple of whispers began. Customers who had been frozen moments earlier now exchanged surprised glances. Murmurs of admiration spread as people began to realize the depth of Barron's maturity. The atmosphere, once heavy with tension, started to lighten. Barron's response, so unexpected for someone so young, was inspiring. His small act of kindness was already changing the room's mood. The stranger stood silent for a moment, the anger in his face giving way to something softer, confusion, and perhaps shame. Barron's gentle question and kind offer had disarmed him. He looked down, his hands clenching and unclenching as though grappling with emotions he could no longer suppress. Finally, his voice broke the silence, but this time it was quieter, trembling. "I'm sorry," he began, his words faltering as tears welled up in his eyes. He went on to share his struggles, speaking in halting sentences that carried the weight of his pain. "I've been out of work for months. My family is falling apart. I don't know how to fix anything," he confessed, his voice cracking under the strain. His anger wasn't about Barron. It had been a misguided release of frustration and despair. The apology that followed was heartfelt, his tone filled with regret. "I shouldn't have taken it out on you," he admitted, wiping at his eyes as tears began to fall freely. The cafe grew even quieter, the weight of his vulnerability touching everyone present. Patrons who had been mere spectators now felt a collective shift, their empathy awakened by this powerful moment of raw human emotion. After listening to the stranger's heartfelt apology and struggles, Barron responded with more than just understanding words. Quietly standing up, he approached the counter, speaking briefly with the staff. Moments later, he returned and gently addressed the man. "Your meal is taken care of. Please take your time and try to relax." His tone was calm and full of sincerity, a stark contrast to the tense start of the interaction. Barron didn't stop there. Turning to the staff, he asked them to look after the man, ensuring he felt welcome and supported. His simple act of generosity and thoughtfulness was enough to make the stranger's tears flow again, this time not from pain but from a sense of being seen and cared for in a moment of vulnerability. Before sitting back down, Barron addressed the cafe patrons, his words resonating with everyone present. "We all go through tough times. A little kindness can make a huge difference," he said, his voice steady but filled with meaning. The cafe was silent, not out of tension this time, but out of awe and reflection. Barron's actions and words reminded everyone of their shared humanity, inspiring a renewed sense of compassion in the room. As Barron returned to his seat, the atmosphere in the cafe had completely transformed. What started as an uncomfortable, tense moment had evolved into something deeply moving. Patrons sat quietly, reflecting on what they had just witnessed. The kindness and maturity displayed by someone so young left a lasting impression on everyone present. It was as though Barron's words and actions had struck a chord, reminding each person of the importance of empathy in a world often filled with judgment and haste. One by one, people began to clap softly, breaking the silence. The applause wasn't loud or boisterous but carried an air of respect and admiration. Barron, visibly humble, simply nodded and smiled briefly before returning to his quiet demeanor. The man, still sitting in his seat with teary eyes, looked around, visibly moved by the unexpected support from complete strangers. Meanwhile, someone in the cafe had captured the entire interaction on their phone. They uploaded the video with a caption about kindness and compassion, and within hours, the story began to spread online. Social media was flooded with praise for Barron, with users from around the world commending his calm demeanor and the impactful lesson his actions had imparted. The cafe moment had gone viral, inspiring thousands to reflect on their own actions and embrace kindness. The scene in the cafe became a testament to the transformative nature of kindness and patience. What could have spiraled into a heated confrontation was instead turned into a moment of connection and understanding. Barron's calm demeanor and empathetic response not only diffused the tension, but also reminded everyone present of the profound impact small acts of compassion can have. Barron, just a teenager, demonstrated a level of maturity that many strive for their entire lives. In the face of anger and misplaced frustration, he chose not to react with hostility or defensiveness. Instead, he led with empathy, seeing beyond the man's outburst to the pain that fueled it. His actions spoke to the power of understanding and how a gentle approach can shift the course of even the most volatile situations. The message was clear: kindness is not a sign of weakness but of strength. It has the ability to bridge divides, heal wounds, and inspire others to act with compassion. Barron's actions reminded everyone that no matter how young or old, each of us holds the capacity to influence our surroundings positively. His quiet courage and empathy became a powerful lesson in humanity, one that resonated far beyond the walls of that cafe. As the emotional scene in the cafe began to settle, the stranger stood up, his posture no longer weighed down by anger or despair. He approached Barron with a tentative but heartfelt expression. "Thank you," he said, his voice cracking slightly. The weight of those two simple words carried an entire story: gratitude, apology, and a newfound hope. The man's eyes, now filled with a sense of relief, met Barron's calm gaze. It was as though a burden had been lifted, and he could breathe more freely. Barron nodded with a warm, understanding smile, offering no grand gestures, no need for acknowledgement or applause. He simply returned to his seat, quietly resuming his place in the background of the cafe's hum. His humility was as striking as his kindness, a reminder that true generosity doesn't seek recognition. As the stranger exited the cafe, those present couldn't help but reflect on the moment they had just witnessed. The tension that had once gripped the room was replaced by a sense of unity and inspiration. The day's events left everyone with a powerful thought. In a world so quick to judge, sometimes all it takes is a moment of kindness to change everything. If this story touched your heart, don't forget like and subscribe our channel for more amazing content.